So hello guys, in this video, today we will solve a guided exercise which is managing compressed tar archives from Red Hat System Administration 1 8.2 course. Okay, so this guided exercise is from the chapter archiving and transferring files. So let's start it. Okay, so our first task will be to start and set up the lab. So for that we will open up our terminal, and in that we will run this command lab archive manage. Okay, so now once our lab is set, we will SSH as a student user into server A machine. Okay, so now we will switch as a root user in this machine. Okay, because we will be working with a tar command, so we will be needing a root user access for that. We will enter our password. Okay, so now once we are a root user here, we can perform all the operations that tar command requires. So now first of all, what we will do, we will use the tar command with the -czf options to create an archive of the /hc directory using zzip compression, and then we will save that archive file as /temp/hc.tar.zz. Okay, so now for that we will execute tar -cfz. Okay, so now C for creating an archive, F for the file that we will mention, and Z option is for the type of compression we will be using. Okay, so now here we will execute /temp and /hc.r. Okay, and we will here mention the directory of which we want to make the compression, xc. Okay, so now we will execute this command. So now we will to accomplish that task, we will execute this command as tar c z and f. Okay, and then we will mention our the directory. Okay, the name of the file that we want to use, and this is the location of which we want to archive the directory. So this directory is this is the directory of which we want to use tar on, and then this is the directory or like folder of which we will get as an output. Okay. Okay, so now our command is executed, and what we will do, we will just verify whether our task whether the archive has been created or not. So for that we will use this option. Okay, with tar command, tar, so -t option stands for the table of contents. Okay, and then z and then f for, and when we mention f option, we have to give the location of our directory or the file, which is hc.tar. Okay, so now these are all the files or folders in the hc directory that we have created the or performed the compression on and created the archive. Okay, so these are, you can see. Okay, so now we will move on our next step. So now so on this server, what we have to do, like we have to create a directory name /backup test, and we have to verify that the hc.tar.zz backup file is a valid archive by decompressing the file to the backup test directory. Okay, so now first of all we have to create the backup test directory. For that we will use mkdir command and backup test. Okay, and then we will change our directory and go inside the backup test. And okay, now once we are inside the backup test directory, what we have to do, we have to list the contents of hc.tar.gz archive before extracting the files and folders inside it. Okay, so again we have to just uh, print the contents of that archive. So table contact, then z and then f. We have to mention the and the name of the archive. So this was the name of our archive, and here again all the lists. Okay, so now we will extract the archive. Okay, so now for that we will execute this command. So for extracting we will use r as option dash x for extraction, z for the type of compression we used. Okay, so which was zz and f. Okay, and when we mention f option, we have to also give the location of our directory or our archive. Okay, so the 10 dot r dot gz. Okay, so now it has been extracted successfully because we didn't got any error. So now what we will do, we will list the contents of the backup test directory and verify the directory contains the files from the HC directory are there or not. Okay, so first for listing we will use long listing. Okay, so there is indeed present HC directory here, and what we will do, so now uh, we will move inside this directory. Okay, and we will again do a long listing, and again as you can see all are the files or directories that were under the HC directory are here. Okay, so now in this lab we perform the various operation using tar command. Like first we archived the directory HC directory, and then we extracted that archive in the new folder. Okay, so now we have to exit because our job is that. Okay, but what we have to do again is to close the lab, or at least check out whatever we have done whether it's correct or not. So for that we will execute this command, and again so lab is finished and it's done. So now we will be solving a guided exercise named as transferring files between systems securely, which is from the course Red Hat System Administration 1 8.2. We will be copying files from a remote system to a local directory using scp command. Okay, so now for that first of all we have to set up this lab, and for that we have to execute this command as lab archive dash transfer. So this will set up the lab environment for us, and then we will do SSH into server A as a student user. Okay, so now once we are into server A as a student user, what we will be doing is we will be using, so first of all we will be creating a directory using mkdir command. Okay, so in the home as named as server backup. Okay, so now what we will be doing is we will be using scp command to recursively copy the /hc/ssh directory from server B. Okay, so to the /home/student/server B server backup directory, which is now we created. So on this server A, so we are now in server A, and we will be copying the /hc/ssh directory from server B using scp command. And now, so it will be prompt us to for a password, and we will enter the password. Okay, so now okay, now let's execute that command. So scp for secure transferation of file. So -r option for recursively copy all the files folders that are present in the folder. Okay, root @server B. Okay, so now as a root user from server B, we will be transferring the files. Okay, now we will provide the location. So like from where we have to, so like from where we are copying this file. So from hc directory, and where we have to copy this file. So that location is the directory that we just created, server backup. So yeah, so now it's just asking me to enter the password, and I will enter the password, and yeah, all the files have been copied. So now, but we have to verify first. Okay, so now we will verify that the /hc/ssh directory from the server B is copied to our home/student/server backup directory or not in our server A. So for that, what we will do, we will be long listing with R option that will recursively show us all the files and directories present in this directory. Okay, we will just give the location. Okay, now see, as you can see, like there are so there is a SSH folder. In this folder we have all these files. Okay, and there is also one folder sshconfig.d, which is this folder, and this folder has these files. Okay, now we will just exit from server A as a student. Now we are back to the workstation as a student and user, and now we will finish our lab by executing this command as lab archive dash transfer finish. So now we will be solving a guided exercise named synchronizing files between systems securely under Red Hat System Administration 1 8.2 course. Okay, so now so in this exercise we will synchronize the contents of a local directory with a copy on a remote server by using rsync over SSH. So now for that we have to set up the lab, and to do that we have to execute this command as lab archive sync and start. So what this command will do, this command will set up our system for the environment. Okay, so now we will be SSH into server A as a student from the workstation. Okay, so now we are into the server A as a student user. So now we will create a directory name /home/student/server logs on server A, which means this server, and we will use rsync command to securely create an initial copy of the /var/log directory tree on server B in the /home/student/server logs directory on the server A. So for that, on server A, we will create a target directory name server logs in /home/student directory to store the logs files synchronized from the server B. So first of all, we will create a directory in the home directory. Okay, server logs using mkdir command. So now we will use rsync command to synchronize the /var/log directory tree on server B to the /home/student/server logs directory on server A, which is this directory. Okay, so now that the only root user can read all the contents in the /var/log directory on server B. So all files are transferred in the initial synchronization. So for that, we'll execute our sync-jv option, and as a root user on server B, and we will mention the directory /var/log, and then we will mention the local local system location, which is home and server logs. In home, in student, and then server logs. It will ask for password. I will enter the password for the root user on server B. Okay, so now all these files have been transferred or synchronized into our server A's directory that we have mentioned, which is server logs. Now, like as a root on server B, we will execute the logger command. Okay, so that the command to get a new entry in the /var/log/messages log file to reflect like when the last time synchronization took place. So this command will create a log in on server B. Fetch root server B. This is a logger command. Okay, and we are so this is a log message as a log files synchronized. Okay, okay, so we will enter the password. Now it's done. Now we will use rsync command to securely synchronize from the /var/log directory tree on the server B to the /home/student/server logs directory on server A. So now we will note that this time only log files that have changed are transferred. Okay, so now note that. Okay, so we will use the same command because everything is same, the locations are same. Okay, now just note that only these files have been transferred this time, not all the files. So that's where rsync command gets handy. Only the change file from server B from /var/log directory have been transferred to this location, not all the files. Okay, so now we will exit from server A back to workstation, and now we will close this lab by executing this command finish. Done. Hello guys, so in this video we will be solving a lab known as archiving and transferring files from chapter 13 of Red Hat System Administration 1 8.2 course. So in this lab we will use tar, rsync and scp to archive and backup the contents of directories. Okay, so first of all we have to execute one command to start the environment in which we will perform the lab. So for that, we will use this command lab archive review start. Okay, now once our environment is set, we will SSH into server B as a student user to perform our next steps. Now let's do that. SSH student server B. Okay, now we have been successfully logged in as a student in server B system. In that, we will escalate our privileges as root. For that, we will execute this command and enter our password, which is the root password. Okay, now we will create one directory called config sync. In this directory we will store the synchronized configuration file from server A. Okay, and this directory will be in home/home/ root user directory. Okay, now we will use rsync command to synchronize the /etc directory tree from server A to the /config sync directory on server B. So for that, and we should also be aware that only the root user can read all the content in the H directory on server A. So for that, we will be using root user for that. Okay. So now we will use rsync command with options A, V, and as root user can access the H directory on system A, we will use that user, then server A, then directory HC and config sync, which is already being created. Okay, so now it's asking to confirm the uh, SSH key. Yes, and we have to also enter the password. Now you can see all the files have been copied from server A's H directory to server B's config sync directory that we created. Now we will use zzip compression to create an archive named config file dash backup dash server a dot tar dot gz with the contents of config sync directory. For that, we will use tar command with the dash czf options to create a zzip compressed archive. Okay, so now we will do that using tar command, tar czf. Okay, so now we will give the name of our file config backup server a dot tar dot gz config. Okay, now this operation has been successfully completed. Now we will use star command again with the dash tzf option to list the contents of the config dash backup dash server a dot tar dot gz archive. So for that we will again use star command with tzf option and we'll specify the file which is config backup server a dot tar dot gz. Okay. Okay, now as you can see, these are all the files that have been compressed, which were under the config sync directory that, and we received this file or we copied this file from server A's H directory. Okay, now we will securely copy the /root/config file dash backup dot server a dot tar dot gz archive file from server B to the home and student directory on workstation. So workstation is also one of the system uh, in this network as a student user using the student as the password. Okay, so for that what we will do on this machine, we will execute the scp command. Okay, uh, and we have to specify the directory config backup server a dot tar gz. Okay, and for using the next line, okay, we will use that uh, this escape character, and we will specify the server location with the user, which is workstation station home and and student. So in okay, so we will end yes and then the password which is student. Okay, now the operation has been successfully completed because as we saw 100% completion, so all the files have been successfully copied. Now we will exit this server and we will SSH, or we will go inside the uh, workstation machine again. So for that, now I've been back into the workstation machine, and here we will create a directory called temp/temp/saved config directory, so where the contents of the /home/student/config -backup-server-a.tar.gz archive will be extracted. Okay, so first of all we have to create that directory. Okay, so under the temp directory we have created this new directory called saved config, and we will move inside it. So for that we will use cd command. Okay, now we have to we have to extract it. So for that we will use tar command. Tar. First we will list. Okay, so we will list the contents of the config file -backup-server-a.tar.gz archive. So for that, okay, so this is the file, and we will just list the contents, and as you can see all the contents have been listed here. Now we will use the X option with tar command to extract the contents. Okay, so we will execute this command tar x z and f. Okay, and with that we will specify the location, which is, so this is the file that we have to extract. And this X stands for the extract, this F stands for the file that we will, so this is the file that we want to operate on, and this Z is for the type of completion. Okay, now the operation is successful. So now we will just use the ls command to view whether the files have been extracted or not with -lr option. So now as you can see here, all the files have been listed that have been extracted successfully. Okay, so you can see all the files here. So these are all the files under etc directory from server A. Okay, and we have performed we have used various commands like tar, rsync and scp